My name is Lori Snyder, and I'm Assistant Localization Lead at Xseed Games.
So, Lori, talk a little about Rune Factory 4 Special, this simulation slash RPG that's coming out.
Sure. So Rune Factory 4 Special is part of the Rune Factory series. It is basically a remaster of the 3DS version of the game. So all of the graphics are very smooth, very fancy now, with extra features added on as well. So we've got like an extra Newlywed Mode for players who like to enjoy their relationships with the characters. We've also got another story scenarios that talk about what the characters do after marriage. Because this is a very chill kind of game. You're farming, you're defeating monsters. It's got this amazing combination of the casual farming simulator, but JRPG elements spliced in as well, and it makes for a very good combination.
So talk about the gameplay in this game. Is it kind of like a dating sim meets JRPG? Like, I mean, all the characters are very pretty, of course.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it, I think. The JRPG aspect kind of takes precedence because, the main story is about you're a person you've lost your memory, and you fall into this town, and you accidentally become the prince or princess of this town, and, due to some misunderstanding, and then it's your job to kind of, make this town a better place to live, to develop it into something, really special, hold festivals, get involved with the residents. While also, going into dungeons, defeating monsters, defeating the evil empire, things like that, that are still very, key points to JRPGs. You'll still be exploring dungeons and things as well, but you'll also be, communicating with the residents of Selphia, the town in Rune Factory 4 Special, and you can make friends with them. You can make more than friends with them, obviously. Got marriage candidates for both boy and girl players, and they've all got their own charms. They've all got very detailed stories if you get more involved with them. So it's really got a nice balance of everything. So whatever you're in the mood to do, to talk to people or to just fight monsters, Rune Factory 4's got it.
Yeah, talk about the battle system itself. It says you do have monster battling in this game as well.
Yeah, so it's a basic kind of dungeon crawler sort of game. You go in a dungeon. It's like a top-down view of your character, and so it's more action-based, kind of action RPG based, where you'll like see the monsters coming up at you, and you'll be able to defeat them. There's no like turn-based systems or anything like that going on. It's just kind of a hack and slash sort of game where you can just like run around and defeat monsters as they pop up.
Now, like you mentioned before, this was on the Nintendo 3DS, and they had the two-screen system. So how is that implemented into this remaster?
So for the remaster version, because we couldn't use the two screens at the same time, all of the menus and important things were kind of consolidated into the one Switch screen when we originally ported it to the Switch. But it's still very easy to access. It's not like any less accessible than it was in the 3DS version. So players who are familiar with the 3DS version will still find that they'll be comfortable with the UI as you're playing on one screen rather than two.
And you guys also have new modes for these ports, because I guess there was a veteran mode in the Nintendo Switch that's going to be included in this as well.
Oh yes, we have a new battle difficulty in Rune Factory 4 Special. It's called Hell Mode. It's a very difficult mode play style. If you're really like a Rune Factory veteran and you really want to challenge in your life when you're going into these dungeons, Hell Mode is the mode for you. So you can go in and fight monsters and get as much of a challenge as you like.
That's great. Can you talk to bringing it to the other platforms, PC, PS4, and Xbox One? Because obviously it came out on Nintendo Switch. Did it sell well, and you listened to your community? Did they want it on these other systems, or was this just something you decided to do just because you wanted it on other systems?
I mean, the success on the Nintendo Switch was palpable. I mean, I remember when it first came out on the Switch, and we were just so surprised to see how overwhelmingly positive the fan feedback was. And so, we wanted to spread this game to other platforms to try and see make sure that the Rune Factory fans who have all sorts of consoles, can play the game on whatever system they prefer.
That's great. And then moving into the newer one that's coming out next year, early to 2022, is Rune Factory 5. What can you tell us about its sequel?
Yes, I'm very excited about Rune Factory 5. So Rune Factory 5 is the first mainline Rune Factory game in almost 10 years. Rune Factory 4, the original Rune Factory game was released, Rune Factory 4 game was released in 2012. And so it's almost been 10 years, and fans have been, patiently waiting. Like, where's Rune Factory 5? Where is it? And it's finally here. So it's very exciting. It takes place a couple of decades after Rune Factory 4. And so, there's no like big relation to Rune Factory 4, but it's still in the same world, and similar sorts of, plot points and characters where, you're this ranger coming into this new town. You've lost your memory, and so you get hired as a peacekeeping ranger, and you get to know the residents, and you go on adventures, and find yourself wrapped up in big RPG mayhem as usual.
So it's more or less it's kind of like a brand new game with the same systems. It's not like a continuation of like the same characters and it's a completely new experience.
That's correct, yes. Although if you do have data for Rune Factory 4 Special, you do get guest characters that come in from Rune Factory 4 who are visiting because they're kind of special characters who they age slower, so they look just as pretty as they do in Rune Factory 4. And so, fans will be really pleased to see those characters, in Rune Factory 5 as well, kind of upgraded to 2022, 2021. So yeah, and
this is coming exclusively on the Switch, which is awesome. Talk a little about that.
Yes, so Rune Factory 5 will be coming to the Nintendo Switch. I was like so impressed the first time I saw the graphics on the Switch for this game. They're very colorful and animated, and from everything down to the character models to like, when the character is just farming and like doing the regular thing, or if they're in a cutscene, the developers put a lot of work and care into making sure these characters were as animated and as lively and lovable as possible for the Nintendo Switch. They were from that to, there's like animated character portraits that they have, or like, different events that kind of show off, the graphical capabilities of the Switch, which are really cool. So I think fans have a lot to look forward to. It's a really big jump graphically for Rune Factory, because we haven't seen a big 3D Rune Factory for some time. So I'm sure fans will be really excited about it.
And then talk about like, there's so much stuff you can do in this open world in Rune Factory 5. You could fish, you can farm, you can find love and friendship and fight monsters. Talk a little about all these like activities you can do in the game.
Yes, so the farming feature is obviously one of the biggest elements of the game. Something different about Rune Factory 5 is that you'll be farming not just on just one little field, but you'll be farming on what's called farm dragons. And these are different elemental dragons that have just fields on their backs, and you can farm crops on the backs of these dragons. You can raise like monsters that you tame in the wild. To make friends with them. There's cute little sheep monsters called woolies that you can take care of. They're very cute. They're like little Rune Factory mascots. But then other than farming, adventuring is a really big deal. And Rune Factory 5's map is huge. Players who are familiar with Rune Factory 4 are really impressed with the large world map in Rune Factory 4. But Rune Factory 5 is even bigger. It's huge. You can go to so many different places. And, fans will be really interested to see all of the different environments that you can explore there. There's volcanoes, there's forests, there's, icy areas. There's so many cool areas to explore that I'm sure they'll be really psyched about.
And then like, speaking to your job specifically with localization, what are some of the challenges when getting this game out there? Because like I said, it's a very Eastern game, and a lot of people who aren't familiar with that culture or that type of world may be a bit confused or even intimidated about some things that they play with in the game.
I think that over the past like 10 years, since Rune Factory 4 came out, fans have been very have gotten very familiar with this genre, whether it's the farming genre or like the sort of dating sim genre. Fans of the series are more or less accustomed to those sorts of tropes that happen in those two game genres. And I think the biggest challenge for localizing a game like Rune Factory 5 is more or less it's a massive size, because there's so much you can do in the game, and these characters have so much to say that it takes a very long time to localize and make sure that all of our characters in this game are as accurately translated and characterized as possible. I worked with translating the voice script, for example. And that was an undertaking in itself, because it's hard to know what context this is going to be used in. We want to make sure that it works for every situation where if a character is saying hello, you know, what if they say it happily when it's actually like a really sad event? So there's just things you need to keep in mind when you're localizing, you know, a game like Rune Factory that has these sorts of like short voice clips involved in the game as well, because the game is partially voiced.
It's funny, we've come a long way from, I mean, I don't know how old you are, but like from Sailor Moon in the 90s, the things that they changed because they didn't want to have any Eastern thing in the show, right? Their food and their names and like what they called restaurants and stuff like that. We've come such a long way and grown as a country from like accepting other people's cultures and exposing to people for the first time. And I think that's incredibly important, like you said, to keep all that in the game. And you guys sound like you're doing all that, so it's great. So like, Laura, when does the game... It says early 2022. Do you have a hard release date for Nintendo Switch? Any date fans can look forward to?
Nothing concrete just yet, but you know, we want to get it out there as soon as possible. We know fans are really excited. They've been asking, when is Rune Factory 5 coming out? So hopefully this 2022 date will help give a better window of when we're expecting to release it.
That's awesome. And where can people go to find more information about Rune Factory 4 Special and Rune Factory 5?
So our social channels are always a great place to go. You know, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you happen to go. You know, we'll have our latest updates on the localization of the game. You know, we may have blogs in the future, as we do for some of our newer titles as well. You know, we'll have updates on release dates and things like that as well. And we'll also have a Rune Factory 5 website as well. So that'll also probably be posted up on Twitter once it's ready.